Hey there guys, I'm Axel the Beast and this is the Curiosity Shop, the ZeldaDungeon.net video mailbag where I answer your Zelda questions, and I haven't even shaved because I just don't care. Our first question comes from Jamie Link. Which Zelda game represents your childhood? It's a very difficult question for me because I didn't really get a lot into Zelda during my childhood specifically. It's kind of something I got way into later, though I played Zelda games early on. I tried Ocarina of Time at fairly young. I think I've told this story before. I tried Ocarina of Time fairly young, but I didn't actually own a Zelda game until Link to the Past, and I spent a long time on that game, I think. I think it took me a while to get through it, and I guess I'd say that if any Zelda game I have the most memories of in my childhood, it would be A Link to the Past. For that reason, it just took me so long to get through the game, and it just became like a big part of my life at that point, trying to get through that game. But I'd say that other games from other series define my childhood a lot more. But, you know, tell me what your guys' most childhood-defining Zelda game is in the comments. Bradley Crowling asks, if you could add anything to Hyrule Historia, what would you add? Well, that's also a very tricky question, because, you know, like, at least for me, Hyrule Historia isn't something I specifically really wanted, I guess. It's not something I would have thought that they should have done. I would have rather they just, you know, add more lore and world building to the Zelda games themselves, so you can establish a game-specific take of the Zelda world within that game itself, and just make the world feel alive in the game. So a book detailing things isn't what I would have come up with. If I were to add something or want them to add something to it, I would have wanted a lot more detail on this whole Dark Demon Curse, like Sheikah, that kind of whole mess that I've been theorizing on and a little obsessive over maybe for quite a while. I would have liked more details there, and I would like some more closure on that whole point, but that's just me. What did you guys want to see in Hyrule Historia, or what would you have put in Hyrule Historia that wasn't in there? Ocarina of Time fan, there's a lot of those, asks, how do you think the Wind Waker HD will implement the Tingle Tuner, if at all? I think it would be pretty cool if a second player could use the Wii U's gamepad to control the Tingle Tuner. Yeah, that would be pretty cool. I mean, I didn't think of that a while back when they asked the question of what do I think that they'll do for changes or improvements in the Wind Waker HD. I don't know why I didn't think of that. Hey, I'm not perfect. You know, thinking about it, though, yeah, they could use the Wii U gamepad for the Tingle Tuner. That would be extremely easy. At the same time, though, I imagine that it'll be what the main player uses. Maybe there'll be a separate game option where the controller is given to someone else. I don't know. I feel like they'll definitely have the Tingle Tuner in there, because it was a part of the game, and there were even unlockables and secrets and, like, a whole side quest built around it. So I imagine they'll find some way, though I'm not sure how that specifically would work out in terms of, well, whatever controller they use would have to have a screen, but what about the main game? Wouldn't the Wii U controller be used for that? So I don't know. It's a bit of a tricky question to answer. Let's see. Westar asks, do you think that the Zelda staff should listen more to the fans' ideas about creating future Zelda games? Oh, yes and no. I think that they do listen. I mean, I think if you look at games like, well, some of what you saw in Skyward Sword, or a lot of their supposed, like, you know, mission going forward with Zelda Wii U, so they've stated, kind of fall in line with certain things fans have talked about. So I think there's some definite evidence of them doing that. Even Twilight Princess was evidence of that, of people complaining about the Wind Waker's graphics. It was a total reversal. It was like, it's like what people were asking for. So they do listen. I think at the same time, though, I mean, it's obviously good for a company to listen to what the fans are asking for and what they want to be in the game. At the same time, I think there's a flip side to this, and you have to be really careful about that, because sometimes the fans can have dumb ideas, you know? If you try to make a game that's everything the fans want, it just becomes a fan service game, and very little of the creator's vision or intention or own creativity is put into the game. And while not necessarily bad, not absolutely, definitely a bad thing, I generally see cases of that don't seem to work out too well. So I'd say that there's a balance that needs to be struck, and I think for the most part Nintendo does strike it. They just have struck it misguidedly, I guess. Until, hopefully, the next game. Hopefully that'll be a change. Caleb Cheek asks, why does Link always get the Triforce of Courage, Ganon always gets power, and Zelda Wisdom? Surely there are people that would be more suited for them. Please explain. Well, you gotta keep in mind that Ganon is essentially the same person game to game, with the exception of Four Swords Adventures, which is a second Ganon for some reason. So, you know, he's the same guy. What does someone would have to come around who's more power-worthy than him? I mean, it's the same guy. He's gonna retain it unless someone trumps him on the power hungriness, or powerfulness, whichever one is the key here, if not, or maybe it's both. Anyway, regarding Link and Zelda, yeah, you know, they're different people each time, so maybe someone else could have them, and maybe that would be an interesting plot point to have them not have it. At the same time, they are also different people, so it is different people getting it each time. It seems weird, but they're built for those roles in the story, so it doesn't seem that odd to me that they keep getting it from game to game. Mick Caggers asks, I'm curious, do you think Zelda will ever have a female villain? I realize that the role of arc villain is taken, but if they keep going down the road that they're going with the master-servant relationship between villains, a female servant would be interesting, don't you think? Well, short answer, yes. I agree that it would be cool to have some female villains. Slightly, marginally longer answer is that we actually have. Like, we've had, as you described, the servant characters who serve Ganon or whoever. We've had Varen from Oracle of Ages. She was a female villain who served Ganon / Twinrova. Even Twinrova were a bigger villain in the game than Varen, but not as big as Ganon, so there's that too. There's also Magio, I think that's how you say it, who is the villain, the main villain of the second Tingle RPG, Color-Changing Tingle's Love Balloon Trip. Side game, spin-off thing, yeah, definitely, but it was a female Zelda villain, technically, so there's that. Pathetic Barrel asks, do you think that the Zelda series in general would benefit from a game that doesn't have Link as the main character? I think it would allow the development team to experiment and polish new gameplay, and give more room for the writers to flesh out the series' stories. I don't really think changing from Link would accomplish that, because, again, as I said earlier, Link is essentially a different character in every game. It is a different... I mean, they already are having different characters for their lead role. They just use Link as the template. So I think that working within that, maybe being a little more varied between the different Links, they are essentially doing the variety and whatnot, and experimenting with different concepts for Link. I guess they could make them more different, or, like, I don't know, ditch some of the core tenets, but I don't see a lot of reason to. It's a mold that they can kind of do whatever with, so I don't know. I don't think that it changes a lot if they get rid of Link. I guess I would have no particular beef with it, though, but he is iconic. Link 5967 asks, so I was wondering if there could possibly be more use of the figurines in Zelda games, because they are fun to collect and great to have for background information. I like the Minish Cap's figurine system the best because the Wind Waker's was just too much of a pain. What do you think? Well, I certainly liked the Minish Caps in terms of how easy it was, but I thought the Wind Waker had better integration with the game, I guess. You kind of really were hunting down the information by taking the photos. Pictographs, whatever. But at the same time, I think that this was just some kind of odd... It was kind of a frustrating collectible because it's really hard to get all of them, and I never bothered. It's also kind of an odd extension of, like, Navi's hint. Like, she tells you about the enemies, tells you their names, and I felt that this was a way of doing that, of having you collect information about the enemies and characters. And I just think there are better ways to do that. I think Navi, in general, was a great way to do that. So was Fi. You can complain about Fi all you want, but she was a great information source for the enemies themselves. I think having some kind of function like that, or maybe a journal of sorts, would be a better alternative, personally. But that's just me. I think the figurine system was cool. I wouldn't mind seeing it again. Gano3985 asks, what do you think is the most overused item in Ocarina of Time? This sword. Canada Tacos asks, when you rewind in Majora's Mask, you have to put your rupees in the bank at Clocktown if you wish to save them. When you go back to day 1, you can go to the bank and the banker will remember you. How is this possible if time rewinded to the point where you had no rupees? There's no explanation for this. It's a gameplay thing. Unfortunate answer, I guess. But one thing that I did used to think, I think this is kind of funny. He says he stamps you with his special ink, right? So what if he's stamping you with, like, some kind of mark that tells him how much he owes you or whatever, and he's just reading that and you're technically ripping him off because you haven't given him any rupees yet. I don't know, that's what I used to think, and really, it's not really true. There's just no reason for this. It's just not explained. Guy asks, in Majora's Mask, the Goron you gave the meat-shaped stone to in Snowhead says that it is from the Dodongo's Cavern. How would he know this, and is there a good theory or explanation? Short answer, no, there's no real explanation for this. I guess the only way you could really make sense of it is that either Termina has its own Dodongo's Cavern, and he's talking about that, which would make sense, or this is just an oversight by the developers, or, I don't know, a translation issue. I haven't seen what this line was in Japan, so I don't know. I can't give you a straight answer. Darunia asks, are the Rito and the Wind Waker the Zora from Ocarina of Time? Yeah, they are. You know, it's strongly implied in the game, well, not even implied, it's almost stated in certain cases, that the Rito are evolved from the Zora, and the Koroks are evolved from the Kokiri. But it's also confirmed by a developer statement, I think, directly from Miyamoto. So it's definitely canon, it's just fact. It's weird, but yeah, it's true. The Ghirahim of the Dead. asks, do you think Ghirahim is a cool villain or a complete psychopath? Both. Lord Death asks, in the opening of Skyward Sword, we see 6 figures behind who is presumably Demise in the front. The first figure on the left is Ghirahim, and then there are 5 others. My question is, do you think it would be cool to see these remaining Demon Lords, as Ghirahim calls himself, in future games? Maybe Malladus could have been one himself. Well, I personally theorize that Malladus is an extension of the Ganondorf Demise incarnation curse thing. But that aside, you know, that does look like Ghirahim, but I've never taken it to be definitely so. It's presumably Ghirahim as it's... Well, I guess it's definitely Demise, but Ghirahim, yeah, it definitely looks like him, but I don't think that's 100% certain. It's definitely plausible, but I'm not 100% convinced that was what they meant to do. Because a lot of the other guys look like weird goblin men, sort of like he did in that scene. But regarding... And it's also just as unclear that they're all Demon Lords, but I do like the idea of there having been more Demon Lords in in Skyward Sword, and I would like to see characters like that in future games. I'd like more expansion on the whole demon thing. And there's actually a lot of like early designs for Ghirahim for Skyward Sword in Hyrule Historia that I would have loved to have seen as more demon characters in the game, because they look very different in a lot of cases. So I would have loved to have seen more of these Demon Lords or just demons in general. I just don't think that those were necessarily them. So yeah, sort of half and half answer there. Alright guys, that's it for this time. Be sure to send your questions to the contact information in the description, and I'll see you guys later. The Mighty Thor asks, if Link learned Song of Time in Majora's Mask, does that mean he can open the Door of Time anytime he wants to? Sure? Or something. And do it with that. Oh, wait, that wouldn't work. Canada... Wait, no. Ganondorf... Wait, the frick?